BuddyPress 1.5, and this subtitle is OMFG. Because it's so awesome. Thing number one. So first we're going to talk about front-end things that are changing. Things that the general user of your BuddyPress site will realize or will notice about BuddyPress 1.5. The first one is BuddyBar. So those of you who have used the BuddyPress before, you know that it's always done this since the very beginning, since WordPress MU 2.7 or something, a long time ago. BuddyPress has had this little bar across the top of the screen. It said, My Accounts, Dashboard. If you're on multi-site, it says My Blogs. Nice little quick links to get to any part of the site that you want. Now, what happened with WordPress 3.1? Well, WordPress was like, that's a great idea. Why don't we do that? Since WordPress 3.1 came out, people have had to choose. Do I want to keep the BuddyPress admin bar, or do I want to go with the WordPress admin bar? Well, with the new version of BuddyPress, you can switch over. We've implemented all of the BuddyPress content into the WordPress admin bar. So you can have the best of both worlds. It's much prettier. It combines everything into a single bar, so it's really easy to use. And if you're a developer, you'll know that the API for the admin bar and the functions that are built in for the WordPress admin bar are actually quite nice to use. They're really fast to use. It's really easy to develop new things, as opposed to our clunky old hard-coded BuddyPress admin bar. So the integration is done. I shouldn't say done. It's like 90% done. It is not turned on by default. So if you go and download the beta right now and you install it, you will see the old BuddyBar. And the reason we're really doing that is because all of the sites that are currently using BuddyPress are using the BuddyBar, and if they've made modifications to the site and they boot it up one day and they see all of a sudden that it's gone, they're going to flip their lids. So it's turned off by default. If you want it turned on, put this in your WP config file. That'll flip it on, so that it'll turn off the BuddyBar and it'll turn on the WP admin bar instead. With the next major version of BuddyPress, 1.6 or 1.8, whatever we decide to call it, we will be putting the BuddyBar out to pasture permanently. We'll probably be putting it out to the pasture of plugins, but we won't be killing it outright. But in any case, we'll be putting it out to set. Yes?
Are you going to post the slides?
I would love to post the slides somewhere. Yes, I will. So that's first thing. I'm excited about that one because I did it. So that's really fun. I'm one of 3 developers for BuddyPress. There's a lot of people who contribute. It's an open source project like WordPress, but I'm one of the 3 core developers. Okay. The wizard. It used to be that when you installed BuddyPress, you would install it, and in the background, it would do all sorts of machinations. It would create all of your database tables, and then it would show you a bunch of those big yellow notices at the top. It would say, wait a second, your permalinks are all wrong. Click here to fix it. Wait a second, you haven't installed the BuddyPress compatible theme. You gotta go fix it. Wait a second, have you actually activated the components that you want? You might not even know that there was a settings page because everything just sort of happened, and all of a sudden you've got all this BuddyPress stuff to deal with. Well, it's a little bit of a jarring experience for new BuddyPress admins, and so what we've done is we built a wizard that will walk you through the installation process or through the upgrade process for BuddyPress. If you install BuddyPress from scratch, it's going to walk you through, I think this is the installation process, so this is a 5-step process. If you're upgrading from 1.2.9, it'll be 1 or 2 steps fewer. But it gives you a nice way, it gives you some nice explanations of what's going on here, why am I doing this, and it's a much friendlier way to start your use of BuddyPress. That's the wizard. Profile field day. That pun didn't really work at all, did it? Field day? Okay, I have, yeah. So, next thing. Those of you who have used BuddyPress before know that it's possible as an admin of the site to create custom fields on the back end of the site. And we had a pretty decent way of doing that, but it's totally been rewritten for this version of BuddyPress with a nice Ajax-y drag and drop interface. What that means is that as an admin, if you're setting up what you want those profiles to look at, remember how the site looked. We'll look at my profile here. we have on the academic commons, there's like 6, 7, 8 different profile fields, and these can be organized moreover into groups. So you might actually have a pretty complicated profile. The new Ajaxy interface gives you a nice way to organize these things, to create new things. And we've also worked out a lot of the bugs to create date boxes and stuff like that. So it's a pretty slick way to set up your BuddyPress site.
Question?
Yes?
On the old way, it had the thing where you had the base group and then it sort of moved on to another group. It seems to me a lot of people never made it through the second group and you changed it.
No, that's the same. So the base group will show up. The reason why we need a base group is because we need a display name, and the reason why we need a display name is because we have member directories. So we have to have a base group, and when you register on the site, actually we did fix this part of it. When you register, all of the groups show up. So that part is easy. When you are filling out the profile afterwards, when you're editing your profile, you still have the tabs at the top of the screen where you have to click through to the other ones. But there's actually a pretty quick hack you can do to put them all on one page. I don't have time to talk about it today, but maybe we can talk about it afterwards. No more phantom pages. So you can see the phantom is being eaten in Africa. Okay, yeah. So the way that BuddyPress used to work is that you would have, and I guess it still does work if you're using 1.2.9, is that when you install it, all of a sudden there's a phantom page at yourdomain.com/members and yourdomain.com/groups. What I mean by phantom is that they act like pages. Just like you would have an about page, boone.com/about. And that would be a page that you could go look at in the WordPress admin, and you'd be able to trash it, or you'd be able to set it as draft, or you'd be able to organize it using a WordPress menu. Or it would show up in your, if you use WP list pages or something like that, it would show up in all of your navigation menus automatically. Old BuddyPress didn't do that. They look like pages, they talk like pages, they walk like pages, but they weren't pages, they were phantoms of pages. We had done away with this. We're building, the goal, one of the big goals of BuddyPress 1.5 in general is to stop doing things our own way and do it the WordPress way. And the WordPress way in this case is to actually make real pages. So when you go, I'll show you in a minute on a live dev install. When you go to the back end of a BuddyPress 1.5 installation, there's a pages section underneath BuddyPress, the top level menu. And that lets you associate your component directories, so your member directory, your group directory, your activity page, with a WordPress page. It makes it easy to use the nice Woo menus that were introduced in WordPress 3.0. It allows you to organize them really nicely because they're just pages. You can treat them like pages. Added bonus is that because they're pages, if you want to change the permalink for the page, if you, instead of calling it groups, you want to call it, what's a hilarious thing to call it? I'm really not funny today, I'm sorry. Cupcakes, yeah, I know. So if you want to call it cupcakes, you just go to the WordPress, you go to edit that WordPress page, and you click edit link, and you change it to cupcakes. It used to be that you had to add some stuff to WP config. It wouldn't necessarily take everywhere. Moreover, you can also have nested pages. So, for instance, at BuddyPress.org, we have, maybe I don't have it up anymore. So, I'll show you at testbp. And this is testbp.org, by the way, is a public installation of the latest version, trunk version of BuddyPress that anybody can sign up for if you want to play around with BuddyPress just to get a sense of what it's like. Here, the way that this is set up is that we have a top-level page called Community, which is just a regular WordPress page. And then we have 3 pages under that, Activity Stream, Group Directory, and Member Directory, all 3 of which have the parent page, Community. This gives us nice, pretty URLs. So when I click on this, I get, well, this actually goes to Activity. But if I wanted to, I could have this as Community/Activity. He did that with a menu instead of actually making it the parents. But on WordPress.org, or BuddyPress.org, we have, on BuddyPress.org, we have the support forums, which are at support/topics. Because there's a page called support, and then the forum directory is a page called topics with the parents of support. But then if I go and I look at a user profile, I go to community/members/the username. This allows for a ton more flexibility in the way that you set up the organization of your sites, and it allows you to really have a more sophisticated navigation than you otherwise would be able to have. So that's that. All right. BP default is BP the bomb. So, big improvements in BP default. This is really, Steve has already mentioned this, but this is a lot of TLC has gone into this. For those of you who don't know, BuddyPress comes with a theme called BuddyPress default, BP default. And it was really originally intended to do one thing, show you how to theme BuddyPress. But there was a couple problems with it. First of all, it was kind of a shitty theme. The markup wasn't good, it wasn't consistent from place to place. We didn't really use CSS classes correctly, so that you would end up having too specific of CSS. So it would be a nightmare if you wanted to theme it. And second of all, it was just kind of ugly. I mean, it didn't really work. We had Ajax built into various sorts of places, but it wasn't really consistent. There were a lot of things that weren't really up to standards. So much of this has been taken care of in the new BP default. Just take the CSS style sheet alone. Maybe I'll open it up in a minute to show you what I mean. It used to be just a garbled mess. Anybody who's ever tried to go in there, and I say this as somebody who actually knows the old style sheet pretty well, it's a mess. But now it's organized. It's got a table of contents like the 2011 style sheet does. It's super easy to use. It's organized in a nice way. The markup has been almost entirely rewritten. Well, no, that's wrong. I don't want to make it sound like your old themes are going to break, because they're not. It hasn't been. The selectors haven't been rewritten, but we've reorganized the way so that the structure of, let's say, activity comments is the same as blog comments, so that you have some consistency when you go theming from component to component. We've made the Ajax a little bit more slick. We have added. What else? What else have we added, Steve, that you liked about it?
I didn't play it that much. I did look at just the markup is much cleaner than it was. It used to build tables now.
Well, there were some tables in the old one. There's no tables. There's no tables now.
Did you change the default way gravatars?
We use whatever WordPress uses. So WordPress has those gravatars built in. And yeah, it has like the monster one, and it has the mystery man, and those are built in. You can filter that and provide your own if you want to. And you can actually if you. Mike was talking before about how Gravatar works. You send an MD5 hash. Gravatar will accept an argument that it's like a callback. If it doesn't find a Gravatar, you just give it an arbitrary URL of an image on your own server, and you can provide your own mystery man avatar in that way, your own default avatar. So. All right, so BP default, big improvements. We'll play around with it a bit in a second. Okay, so that's front end stuff. A lot of really making things more consistent. Now, under the hood is where it's really exciting. BuddyPress was very clearly built by somebody who was like, I got to get this thing working today. Anybody who's a developer or a designer, you know what it's like. I know the right way to do this. I know what the budget for this project is. I know how much time I have. So the right way is the one that often loses. And that's how a lot of BuddyPress was. It was kind of sad. What we have done is we have made things the right way in many, many cases, and it's a pleasure. So here's the first one. How many of you use WP debug when you develop? Oh, come on, I saw a lot of developer hands before. Every one of your hands should be coming up. So when you put this flag on in your WP config, what happens is that it's the equivalent, or more or less the equivalent, of turning on high level of error reporting in PHP. And it sends you, anytime you don't cast a variable correctly, anytime you refer to a variable that hasn't been cast yet, anytime you call a deprecated function, all sorts of things, it brings up a notice on the screen that says, you're doing this wrong, do it right. The problem with this is that you couldn't have this turned on with BuddyPress before. And the reason was because it produced so many warnings. It would seriously, you would have to scroll down 8 screens to get to the actual content. It was embarrassing. I mean, it was embarrassing and it was problematic because it meant that as a BuddyPress plugin developer, if you were building a plugin or a theme for BuddyPress, you couldn't turn on WP debug to debug your own plugin because it would be overwhelmed by BuddyPress's debug errors. So we have 0 debug errors that we know about now. So literally thousands of them have been taken care of, and it's a pleasure to develop with, if only for that reason.